you consider his contract and just Western Kentucky. I mean,
I think Bo Pelini might be up there, but
yeah,
John Travis was such a bad hire, and including that Travis was quote going to be one of the best defensive coordinator hires by Chad Morris. I mean, what? That Travis
yeah.
was so bad though, and it's refreshing to see the defense play good.
Ye- Yeah, for sure. So I just think seeing how Barry Odom has turned around, and he's a guy you could tell that the players actually believe in, because I think that's a huge difference too. I don't think much of the players like believed in the coaching staff and to the defensive. I don't think they believed in Chavis, but I think you can see that Odom's rallying these guys and like they believe in him, which I think is a huge key. Like I feel like there's a like a key confidence feeling like the defense is confident in like we can stop these guys. Like I think that all that credit goes to Barry Odom. But I'd say overall I'd give the defense I'm gonna say an A if you consider what it was last year to what it is this year, and if you consider how it's performing compared to other SEC teams. I mean, you can make a very strong argument that Arkansas is the top 5 SEC defense. So I'm gonna give them an A. I think there are Texas A&M showed there are some holes in the secondary, but overall, I'm super pleased with what I'm seeing there.
Yeah, I mean, you basically said it perfectly. I'm gonna give them an A as well. And like you were talking about, the two teams that kind of exposed this team was Georgia, who we prepped for Dwan Mathis all week,
Mm-hmm.
and we played really good against him. He was 6 out of 14, and Georgia doesn't seem to be giving him a shot, even though he was playing a good defense at the time. We stopped Mathis. They bought Bennett on the field. I think that kind of tricked up the game playing a little bit. And you're playing Georgia. I mean, Georgia's
Yeah,
a great team. And then Texas A&M. I mean, you just got to give credit where it's due to Kellen Mond and that offense. They're just a really good offense. You watch the Florida game; they exposed them the same way they did us. That's just one of the
Mhm.
things. I mean, they were the better team that night, and you can't judge a defense based off of one game.
Oh for sure, yeah.
But like you were saying, Jalen Catalan, the redshirt freshman, is stepping up in a big role, and I honestly think he's one of the leaders in that backfield. If you look at where he's like calling guys to move to, it's really interesting because he's only a redshirt freshman, and then you lose him against Texas A&M, and not only did you lose that talent because of he got disqualified for targeting, you lost the leadership. And to say that he's a leader as a redshirt freshman is insane to think about. And going forward, I mean, when he plays sophomore and junior year, assuming he returns, he's going to be a beast.
Yeah, I don't think Jalen Catalon like if he stayed in we would have won. But we if Jalen Catalon would have stayed in the game, the targeting call was called, then we would not have given up 42 points.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it would be like the game breaking decision and all, but I think the defense would have just been a little bit more efficient. But like you said it perfectly with Grant Morgan. I mean, I've been really pleased with how he's played with the 58 tackles with one arm, and then
Mhm.
Bumper Pool has been all over the field. Both of those guys are just constantly running everywhere, getting tackles, making plays. And it's finally good to see somebody step into that when I almost felt like last year and the year before that under Chad, there would just be a play and then the players would just almost like not try.
Yeah.
But I mean, Hudson Clark, he played really good against Ole Miss, obviously. He played good against Mississippi State. Auburn, he did fine. And a lot of people are calling him a one hit wonder, and,
I
he
I
shouldn't be
I will admit
starting.
I was guilty of saying some stuff about Hudson Clark after the Texas A&M game. Just 'cause I felt like they got anything they wanted on him.
Yeah,
I mean,
his game definitely got exposed a little bit, but you got to remind yourself that he's a walk on. I mean, this
yeah.
isn't like a guy who definitely had a focal point in the offseason working with that. And yeah, he definitely got exposed. I mean, that happened, but at the same time, it's a game by game scenario, and I don't think this is like a guy who's going to let one game decide the rest of his performance for the year, because if you watch Mississippi State game, he was really good when he came in for Monteric Brown.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Hudson Clark, though, obviously got those 3 picks, helped that game a lot, and I think it's going to be interesting watching him down the line. He's one of the guys that will perform better as the season goes on, and he gets that more reps, roles, because he really didn't get that in the offseason because he really wasn't expected to be a starter. But I mean, Jerry Jacobs would have been appreciated right now. I mean,
Oh yeah.
even though he might have not started, it would have been nice to have a guy like him. I mean, great talent from A-State.
Yeah, I I'm not really gonna speak on my personal feelings on that, but he definitely would have been. I wish he would have stayed though. He would have
Yeah,
been.
I'm with you there. I mean, in my opinion, I'll never be like, okay, this kid did the wrong decision for his future, because ultimately anybody who's playing at this university is giving up their time, their talent to play for Arkansas, and I'm going to be appreciative of that. And, you obviously wish them the best in the future, because you want to see those, guys in the NFL who, were a part of the Razorback team, even though it may have not been for a long time.
Yeah.
But I also think pressure is going to be more generated up front. I think that'll kind of happen as Marshall plays a little bit better and obviously gets more reps. But then also having Gerald back and getting him to full health will be a lot easier. But like you said, I'm going to give these guys an A. I mean, I'm really satisfied with how this team has played. If you would have told me that we had an arguably top 5 SEC defense at the beginning of the year, I would have called you crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, the fact that they are leading the SEC in interceptions, leading the SEC in pick sixes is really, really good. And anytime that you get an elite defense, it's going to make things easier for the offense. I mean, you look at Georgia the last few years, the offense hasn't been a hot spot for them, but
Oh
they've
no.
been able to play in games because of their defense. And obviously, if you look at Georgia's roster, they didn't really have a QB this year, which is why they're struggling. And we saw Bennett play good against us because the game plan changed there. So I don't think it's fair, though, to judge this team over the A&M and Georgia game, just because, I mean, those are top 10 nationwide schools.
Oh yeah.
But, I mean, if you really want to look at this and complain, I don't understand how anybody could. I've seen people be like, oh, we hired a bunch of bad staff members. I'm like,
Oh no.
what? I mean, get out. We can't just go around the SEC and be like, okay, I choose you. We're going to have to make hires. And I think Sam Pittman has a really, really good breach of coaches. Because if you look at him and what he does on Saturdays, I mean, it's arguably that he kind of just watches the game. I mean, is that a bad thing, though? No, because he has such a great knowledge for the game, and he holds this players accountable, and the culture there is so much better. And if you really want to look at it, this reason why the team is so good is because he came in, established a culture for the team and himself, and then not only did he do that, he went in and hired Bryles, he hired Odom, he hired Sam Carter, he signed Jimmy Smith, Ryan Rhodes. I could keep going on and on about this, and his connections with the football world make it so much easier for the Razorbacks. And, I'm definitely pleased with this hire. And you were one of the people to kind of hop on this train of Sam Pittman going to the Razorbacks before the everything started, right?
Yeah, I did a prediction well, not a prediction post, more like a wish list, I guess you could say, of realistic coaches, and he was number one. I've always loved Sam Pittman. I didn't think he would turn things around this fast, but I at least knew that he would bring back a culture of kind of loving Arkansas and wanting to play there, and that was the least. He's exceeded my expectations so far. But yeah, I'm super content with him, but especially Barry Odom too. Barry Odom's done a phenomenal job as well.
Yeah, I mean, both of these guys, know each other, and when you have good coaches who hold programs to a good level of culture, coaches will respect the head coach and want to coach for your team. So it makes that easier, though. And, I haven't really been a big Razorback fan since like 2017. And when I saw Sam Pittman kind of get thrown in this race, I was like, oh, we're over. We lost Kiffin. We lost Leach. We're looking for nobodies. And then I kind of looked into him and what he's done, saw that how good he was at Arkansas and all of the connections that he had around the football world. And I was really pleased with the hire because it was either this or Drinkwitz.
Yeah.
Or even Leach or Kiffin, even though they didn't want to come here. And Arkansas is 2-0 against those. And they obviously have the game against Coach Drinkwitz later. And I'm feeling pretty good about that one. But, with the defense, I think you got to give this team a high grade no matter what. I mean, Barry Odom has just flipped around this defensive squad.
I'll say this. I mean, if you look at it, if you look at the four hires of Pittman, Leach, Kiffin, and Drinkwitz, there we go. If you look at these four hires, you're going to the season thinking Pittman and Drinkwitz are going to struggle, and then Leach and Kiffin are probably going to at least perform at expectations or exceed them. But it's been the exact opposite. I mean, you see Drinkwitz has done a solid job so far with Mizzou. Pittman's done a great job with Arkansas, obviously. And then Kiffin, Ole Miss hasn't done terrible, but they're not playing up to some of the fans' expectations. And then with Mike Leach, I personally think Mike Leach is a horrible hire. If you consider that we're in the SEC and stuff, I don't think he's gonna be there for a while.
Yeah, I think he's gone after next year. And
yeah, I agree.
I mean, you look at the team and the amount of talent they had. Kylan Hill, I forget the name, but is that Alabama grad transfer? There was so much talent on that team, and you see so many players transferring. 2 quarterbacks have transferred, and that's not going to make it easier for recruiting, as he's not really ranked high in that 21 class. And just, I mean, you look at the hires, though. Leach will probably be gone after next year, in my opinion. Kiffin is playing better, but I don't think they have a defense to win games. They're playing good, but they just haven't been able to win. Drinkwitz, though, has played really good at Mizzou, and he established a good program there, so it makes sense. But, I mean, you look at all 4 of these teams the last 2 years, which one would be the worst? Which one looks like they have a roster that was sanctioned by the NCAA? Arkansas. And Mizzou and Ole Miss were sanctioned by the NCAA, actually, but Arkansas still had a worse roster. And I think the reason why people considered us to have the worst roster isn't because of talent, it's because of development. These are arguably almost the same guys, except for Franks, and that's it, right? Is there anybody new that's starting? That's making a big impact?
No, not really.
I mean, Poole was on this team. Grant Morgan was on this team. I mean, Jerry Jacobs was playing good when he came in. That's like the only really move. But I think defensively, Barry Odom has just turned around what we've seen.
Yeah, and back to my quick point about Leach. Since that LSU game at the start where we thought Mississippi State was going to be amazing, they've only averaged 7 points in the past 4 games.
Yeah. They look horrible, and the future doesn't look bright there. And it was weird because obviously Arkansas played Georgia, and I was, at that game, and I didn't get a shot to see, but I was like, oh, LSU just won a natty. And Mississippi State beat them. They're legit. And all this, the air raid's going to work in the SEC. And then Barry Odom comes out, holds them to 14 points, gets Arkansas their first dub in like over 1,000 days against an SEC team. And then the game plan was out.
That might be an upset to watch where they play Vanderbilt this Saturday. Vanderbilt is not good either, but that would be something to watch for sure.
Yeah, I think the spread was like Mississippi State minus 16. And if I could bet, I would not touch that line. I wouldn't bet on that game at all. It's the 2 worst teams in the SEC going at it.
Yeah, for sure.
But closing it off, this position hasn't been that good for the Razorbacks, and you obviously expected differently as they made a splashy hire with Scott Fountain. Where would you rank special teams right now, and why?
I mean, it's kind of hard at this point. They haven't been bad. I mean, you saw the Georgia game. You had that special teams error that kind of really turned things around there and gave Georgia the win there. But besides that, I mean, overall, I would put the special teams at around like that B- C+ range. I don't think they've been terrible. Obviously, last year the special teams and defense were both awful, and I think I've seen improvement there. But I don't know. I'd still like to see a better. I think there's room for improvement there. I think AJ Reed, up until the Texas A&M game, had performed well, but I mean, you can't miss 2 field goals in a high marquee game like that. But overall, I would put in that B- C+ range. I think there's room for improvement, like I said, but like I said, comparing to where we were at last year, I think there has been improvement.
Yeah, I mean, special teams has gotten better. Obviously, the guard transfer, AJ Reed, he's been playing really good, and I know he had those 2 hard kicks against A&M, but I mean, you can't judge him off for 2 kicks. Reed has been playing good, And I think something that a lot of people don't talk about is punting, as we went through three different punters: Sam Lloyd, George Carrington, and Reed Bauer. Now this team averages 35 yards a punt, and now Bauer averages 44 himself. So he kind of emerged